Listeners be advised. The Soliloquy podcast discuss matters related to the human experience and many that are sexual in nature. Due to this, some conversations may surround triggering topics such as sexual violence, self-harm, abuse, and much more. Please be advised, a list of crisis and psychological resources will be available in the show notes of this episode. With that said, let's get started with the show.
Ladies and gentlemen, may I have your attention please as we go through the following safety instructions.
In the event that there is a loss of cabin pressure, oxygen mask will drop from the overhead. Place the mask over your nose and mouth. Breathe normally as oxygen is flowing even if the mask is not in. Be sure to adjust your own mask before helping others.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Soliloquy podcast, where we step out and speak on sexuality. This is your favorite host, Vernon T. Scott, also known as Slaytor Jackson, for you freaking motherfuckers out there, Sebastian Adams. Today, we have Quitman, Nick, and Bria as we discuss having the sex talk with our partners. I am very interested in seeing what they do. I know what I typically do. Sometimes I do be getting a little bit nervous, so we're going to talk about that possibly. But before we get deep into this conversation, I want everyone to just, quickly introduce introduce each other and whatnot. Whatever the fuck I'm trying to say. I don't know. It's been a long day. It really hasn't. To start off, let's go with Nick, then we'll go with Quitman, and then leave the beautiful and best for last. I'm sorry, y'all. I love her. Bria. That's how we'll introduce ourselves. Nick, what's up? Who the fuck are you?
Hey, everybody. I'm Nick, the Quit. I'm from Memphis. And let's see. Something about me is I'm a very secretive person, but we're going to go into that today.
He's a hoe, y'all. Quitman?
My name is Quitman. I am the creative, and I'm here to talk about everything today.
All right, and Bria?
Sorry, I got sidetracked. I'm Bria. I'm ready. I'm just ready to have this conversation about conversations.
So, before we get deep into that, I want to start off with communication, because communication is the thing. It's important. Like, a lot of people don't know how to communicate, for one, and it's hard to get some people just get into anything of depth and not surface level. So to start off with you, Bria, how important is communication to you? And do you receive communication from a lot of your, have you received communication from a lot of your previous partners? Was there a lack of communication skills? What was that like for you?
So I'm a very, I don't know how to say it. Like I said, I'm a very open person. So I require communication from my partners in the sense of you need to be able to tell me what's going on or how you're feeling, because I tell people all the time, I'm not a mind reader. I don't know what's going on through your brain of yours. So, and I'm somebody who's not afraid to ask questions. And I tell people if I didn't want to know the answer, I wouldn't ask the question. So in the past, I've probably been a lot luckier than most people when it comes to having partners who communicated pretty well. I don't really have beef with any of my exes, because maybe one. Except for one. There's one problematic one. But the rest of them, there's really no beef, because I've been very blessed that we've always been able to communicate even when things didn't work out.
That's good. I cannot say the same for the most part. Well, I don't have too many exes, so that doesn't really count on that end. But in terms of sex partners, some of them just failed at communication all the way around, and some people just have, get too deep into their feelings on things that are like not really big issues. It's a mess. So Quitman, what about you? Is communication important to you in terms of your previous partners? Was their communication style up to par? Was it lacking? What was that like for you?
Oh man, so not to disclose any specifics, so I'll just mix them both together. One of my last partners, I've only had maybe like three or four like real relationships or whatever. But I had a couple of partners where communication was very important. However, the conversations would be perfect, and then there would be like when you're with someone and they just get like really quiet and then they have to like leave. Like I've been in those types of situations where they'd rather like text it, and that was weird. But then I've also been in a relationship where I thought everything was like perfect and we talked about everything, and they wrote me like love letters and things, but then we broke up and I was just like, wait, what? Where's that coming from? So yeah, communication is definitely important. But communicating the right things is more important than communicating about the unimportant things.
That's a good point. What about you, Nick? What's your stance on communication and whatnot?
Okay, as somebody that's a part of the poor communication community, I would like to say I'm with you on the equipment. I am one of those people that do not communicate well. I communicate through verbal and nonverbal, but mostly nonverbal communication. And I think what's kind of an important thing to remember when dealing with communication with somebody is people communicate differently. So like Quitman said, he thought that texting, emotions was a little bit weird. But for me, that is my primary form of trying to get a thought out, because I don't always think of the right things to say or how I truly feel like in the spur of the moment. If it's something that needs like immediate attention, I may have to kind of type it out or take 10 minutes, take 15 minutes to make sure I'm getting my point across. Because if I just say something because I'm just angry, it may not come out the right way. So I think understanding how people communicate and trying to find a middle ground that works for both people is important. Like for example, I'm a texter and I'm not a phone call person, where my partner is a very phone call person. And so she would get frustrated because I say, I don't want to be on the phone right now. I don't want to communicate actually talking to you. I can communicate with you by sitting in a room with you. It may be, we touch feet, that lets to me, that's like, okay, I'm not mad at you. I want to, I'm okay with you being here without me actually saying, yeah, you right next to me. Are you okay? Are you happy? Do you want to be around me? Like, we touching feet. I'm happy. Yeah. I mean, understanding there's verbal and nonverbal communication. I understand that somebody's preferred style of communication is good. It makes communication important and a lot easier.
I know, like, speaking of like a past relationship, I know, like, I tell people all the time, I do not like talking on the phone. And most of my friends already know, do not call Vernon out of the blue unless it's something important, or we're going to be having like legitimate conversation for like an hour or so.
Or if it's me.
She's on the list. She's so I really do have a list of people I will actually like accept a 3-minute conversation with. And yeah, that bitch is one of them. Yes, I said it. I love you. I thought she was about to say something smart.
I was just gonna say I'll take it.
But like whenever like in my past relationship, I let my partner know, like, hey, I don't like to be on the phone because it always brings me back to my time at Geico, and that always just automatically drains me. So I will tell them, hey, I don't mind sending you a text message. If you want to hear my voice, I don't mind sending something via Snapchat. I also hate video, FaceTime. So the middle ground that I found within that relationship is, to send voice recordings. And like most definitely when I have other friends with iPhones, thank you, Bria, for finally upgrading. Yes, I'm throwing shade.
Don't do that.
So
if somebody else didn't pay for this phone, I would have definitely stuck with my Android.
It's so hard to send a voice recording to people with Android. I have to go into my memos app, record something, and then I have to find them to send it to them. And I'm just just find me on fucking Snapchat, because we could send messages on IG. We cannot, not through the phone. But so that was my way of finding or bridging that gap in our communication styles. And I always think about what is one of the things that prevents or limits somebody from wanting to communicate with others. Because I know for a lot of men specifically, we do not know how to communicate our feelings because we either haven't talked about it or lack that emotional intelligence to discuss how we're really feeling. Are there any things, most definitely for the men on the panel right now, anything that you do to bridge that gap with communicating with other people, and for those who date either exclusively or partly men, has that been a hindrance for you to communicate with other people? I kind of want to start with Nick though.
Okay. So just again, what was the first part of the question?
So, was there anything, either upbringing or whatnot, that hinders you from communicating with others? Is there a fear there, or do you have those skills? I know you do now, but previously.
So I do have some. I'm very emotionally constricted. I don't share a lot of emotion. I've been working with Vernon over the past couple years and trying to learn how to communicate a little bit better because I'm not a person that is the I love you, let's hold hands, let's run in the field of flowers.
You better be out here frolicking.
Yeah, no, I ain't out here frolicking. So I've, one of the things that has helped me out, and it's weird, is smoking. Honestly, it's allowed me to slow down kind of the thoughts that kind of eat me up when it comes to communicating emotionally, or kind of constricts my emotional intelligence when I deal with individuals, whether it be a spouse or friends. And so something that kind of puts my mind in a different mental state helps, and it's allowed me to kind of be more loving. If I smoke, I'll definitely say a lot more than I would if I didn't, because that kind of sense of care for others' opinions or kind of fear of others' opinions, it kind of goes away. And hell, if you hide, what's rejection gonna do? You're gonna be smiling by the end of it. So, at least for me.
So you, essentially, it was would you say the fear of rejection was the main thing, or just fear in general was the thing that kept you from communicating with other people?
I think it's just fear in general, because and this actually happened this past weekend, and it made me understand exactly this. I have a fear of meeting new people or talking to people I haven't talked to before. I can't go into a club. I actually never been to a club because of this, or a party. I don't like being around people and saying, "Oh, I don't
Oh, Nick, your phone kind of went out there. Are you still here? Oh, looks like Nick might need to come back in a second. We'll come back to Nick in a second. So, anybody else? What about you, Quitman? What is it like in terms of like your communications with other people, and like, have you had any kind of issues dealing with? Oh, Nick, are you back? Okay. But have you had any issues with communicating with other people in the past, or has there been issues that you've seen from any of your other partners, or either people on apps, people that you're trying to get to know, a lack of communication on their end? So what is your experience like?
You know what? It's so weird. It's weird because I've had both ends of the spectrum. When I was on the apps, you know, I would have like these random guys that I was not into. And, you know, my communication style would be different because, of course, you know, like I'm a polite person, but I'm not into you. But like, I'd be really short and to the point. And I would think, you would really think that that would kind of deter someone from continuing a conversation.
Mm-hmm.
But in all honesty, I assume that when people want you or they want the idea of you, they just don't pick up on certain social cues.
What is with you and dropping these damn gems? Because it's always the idea of wanting to date somebody that always gets me. Most definitely some of the people who are like trying to, you know, send out those sweet messages or try to call you boo too early and don't even know who you are, don't even know your name. And it's just like, yeah, you're attracted to me. I may be attracted to you. I'm cool with, you know, seeing how things go, but you're so fixated on everything that I'm not. You created this entire character in your head of who I am and not really trying to see me or even communicate to know who I am.
Right. It's funny because someone got mad at me a while ago. This was before I started dating this guy that I'm dating currently, but someone got upset with me. They were just basically like, you know, the conversations were very surface level. And anytime I would, you know, try to steer the conversation in a deeper direction, you know, they'd either be busy or, you know, they just wouldn't pick up on the social cues. And then, you know, they called me out. They were just like, I find it's weird that I'm the only one that says good morning and I always initiate the conversation. And I was just like, of course, in the moment, you know, I was like, my bad, I'll be better. Mm-hmm. But like now thinking back to it, I'm just like, how can you expect for someone to communicate with you a certain way when you've already established the way you communicate and it's not conducive to getting to know someone?
Like essentially keeping it surface level all the time, like because this for me is not enough to just say good morning every day, because one, I don't like that, but
me either.
Like just to say that you're initiating convo because you say good morning is not having a conversation. A conversation is going deeper into, okay, so what did you do at work today? And if you indicate that you were unhappy with certain things, let's explore into that. Let's dive deeper into that to see, okay, so you didn't like the way that somebody came into the office, and so let's talk about that a little bit more. Like, what bothered you about how they came into the office? But was the issue resolved by the end of the day? Like, that is how you engage in conversation. If you're just asking me what I'm doing every 5 minutes or every 3 hours, that's not really communicating. Like, I hate whenever I ask somebody what they're doing and they're just like chilling. My next question is like, what does chilling mean? Like, what is chilling? Like, are you watching TV? Are you about to take a shower? Are you reading a book? What is chilling? And that's something that it's hard to get out of other people. Quim, I thought saw that you unmuted. Were you about to say something else?
Oh no, I was just listening and I'm multitasking, so I didn't want you to,
You're fine. You're fine. Bria, what about you? What is your thoughts on just like communicating with other like people? Is there like a lack of communication, or even for yourself? Have you found that you can do better with communicating with other people, or that sometimes the communication just falls off? Like, what is your experience with bad communication overall? Let's go with
that. So much to say, but so touching back on how, like, because again, I'm somebody who I don't date based on gender. So I try to get to know anybody. And the way that I date, I tend to be more attracted to people who I have easy conversation with. So that definitely is a big thing when I've noticed this recently, because some people will have flaws in other areas that I don't notice because they provided me with good conversation. And I'll be ending up in situations. But no, like, I've definitely noticed when it comes to guys, they are very much, when I'm like on dating apps, they're more often the short message people. They're very surface level, very, hey, how you doing? Chilling, nothing. Like, very one word. Some of them will have conversation, but it's not exactly the conversation that is very appropriate in the first time talking to people. But then on the flip side, when I date, I shouldn't say like masculine people, because I feel like masculine women kind of do the same thing too. But when I talk to more feminine women, it's like the conversation is easier, but the problem is initiating the conversation. When I'm on a lot of dating apps where it's like geared towards like women and feminine presenting people, it's so hard just to get one message. Like, you'll match and like you can say, hey, how are you doing? But you are not likely to get an answer. And it's like, is this how like a lot of the guys and like more mass presenting, like, is this how y'all feel on dating apps? Because it's a struggle, because I think, like you said, when it comes to communication, women are seen as the more open communicators, but at the same time, we're also not seen as the initiators of conversation. So it becomes an issue. And as for myself, so I've definitely learned in past relationships that I can come off as very cold in conversation, especially towards men. And I've had to address that in myself, of like why I feel like they don't, not to say y'all don't deserve grace. I hate to say that, y'all, but like, but no, really, like, I had to address why I felt like in conversation, I was very quick to shut stuff down. Like, even somebody I was seriously dating, I was previously engaged, and that was like one big thing with us, was like, he was like, you could be real cold and real abrasive sometimes, because sometimes I'd be like, bruh, suck it up, get it together and suck it up. like it was like I couldn't, for whatever reason, I just couldn't afford grace. And I realized I talked to a lot of guys especially like that, and I've had to address that and try to like watch how I say things and what I say, because sometimes it's not me being cold, it's sometimes it's me trying to provide perspective. And it's yeah, I've had to work on that.
That's real. That's real. Now I think we got Nick back with the audio. We can do a check. Okay,
Yeah,
yeah,
I'm here.
we got Nick back. I know before things went out, you were talking about your fears surrounding, communicating and being around new people, and I understand that. So if the floor is yours.
Okay, so yeah, pretty much what I was saying before I got the technical difficulties was that I have a hard time and a fear of communicating with people kind of in like a small setting or a one-on-one session that I may not know. I don't know if it's like not necessarily expectations of people, but it may be just like some hidden confidence issues that I may have in the back of my mind. But at the same time, even like this weekend, I was able to kind of sing and dance and do karaoke in front of a large crowd, being an introvert with no issues, 1,000+ people. And I had no issue, no nervous sweats, no anything. So I don't understand my fear when it comes to communication, but I do know that it's one of those things where I do need a lot of work.
That's understandable. I know, like, for myself, I used to have like a fear of not being liked by somebody. And this is like even with in non romantic spaces, I'll like want to reach out to this person and just start a conversation like, hey, this is who I am, I'm Vernon, nice to meet you and whatnot. But I also know I'm I guess bold or vibrant personality, and because of that, not too many people appreciate that. And most definitely when it comes to like talking to other men for friendship and whatnot, I always found that difficult because I know the way I sound, I know how I act, I know who I am, and I always had that deep-rooted fear, just because of who I am, this person's just automatically not going to accept me. So I just easily not try to go that route of friendship with that person and to engage with that person, because it's like, why bother if my presence is just going to make them feel uncomfortable? So I tend to not even initiate conversations because of that. But now I'm more of a if you like me, you like me. If you don't, you don't. I don't give a fuck. But I still warm myself up to communicating with people, most definitely when I'm in new spaces, because I'm very big on energy, and I also know I'm very direct, and I don't know how other people respond to that directness. So in order to not offend, I just don't even initiate.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. I think I'm kind of like in the middle between what Quidman and Bria said. Like, I think that now that you've said that, I think that I have a fear of disappointing conversations with people, because it would be, like Quidman said, where he, is kind of short to the point in the beginning. Like for me, when I feel like, okay, I got the confidence to reach out to somebody and they're kind of short and to the point, it's not a kind of building conversation in the front end. It kind of puts me off. And so, experiencing that multiple times, it kind of just makes me not want to talk to people, because once I get to talking, I can talk your ear off. We can talk about anything. I'm very knowledgeable in multiple aspects of things. So finding somebody new to communicate with and kind of initiating the conversation, if I can't get to that level, it makes me very uncomfortable. It makes me not want to communicate anymore.
Felt that. Now, this is going to, I want Bria to start off on this conversation. And it's about how do you bring up that conversation of sex with a partner? I know, at least for myself, because we all know I talk about sex often, so it's always like there, and I'm always ready to engage in that conversation. But at the same time, when I'm meeting somebody new, most definitely on like some dating app, I'm not immediately trying to talk about sex, because though I'm a person who communicates and have these conversations, I'm not always a hypersexual person. But when it comes to someone that you're romantically involved in or you're getting to know, when do you start that conversation about sex, as well as how do you bring it up, or do you wait until the other person bring it up? So Bria, what's up?
Okay, so I am a very hypersexual person. I know that about myself. I accept that about myself. I embrace it. Okay. So usually I am probably the person that brings it up, but it's because generally in conversation, if I like you like that, I'm very flirtatious. So it's not difficult for me to bring it up. That also just might come from me being a woman, and people, I guess when I'm talking to men especially, it's not a hard conversation that is brought up. We just have the conversation. With women, it's a little bit, I would say more difficult, but it's a little bit more nuanced to probably how I bring it up. And usually it kind of starts with like past dating history, like, do you identify as like lesbian, bisexual? And then that kind of leads to like, okay, so what is your sexual experiences like? Is it more so with women, men? So that's a little bit different. And probably the reasons I do it is probably for different reasons behind it too. But yeah, it's not, for me personally, it's not difficult. I bring it up fairly early. As soon as I realize like, hey, we probably gonna do, which is pretty early for me. I'm gonna bring it up because again, I like to have that conversation about what are your boundaries, what are your hard no's, your hard yeses, like what do you want to try? So
and so what I'm getting is not something that is whenever you're bringing it up, it's nothing that actually, brings up any kind of fear in talking about it. It's just like, okay, we're getting to this point. I feel as though it's time to just go ahead and bring this up.
Yeah. I don't think I've had ever really, maybe like in high school. I'm just being honest. Maybe in high school I had that fear, but then I think during that time, because I was first, not to say like I was hoeing all throughout high school or anything like that. Like it was more so like the last year of high school. Maybe there was a little bit more fear in that because, of course, anybody I was talking to was also probably a high schooler. So that was just more so the fear of I don't have any experience. And maybe the first year of college. But after that, like, okay, let's go. Let's talk about it. Let's have this conversation. I've kind of had this conversation, weirdly enough, with it's a person. She's not exactly, I wouldn't say she's like a family friend, but she's like an older person I know. And she was saying like how we were talking about sex education. I was like, I was very lucky because I got comprehensive sex education at school, starting from, I think they started about fourth grade. I want to say third. And then also like having people around me that were sex positive, I think kind of helps me not exactly keep that fear for long. I feel like everybody's going to have that fear. But for me, I was able to surround myself with people who I was comfortable asking questions to, and I was comfortable enough with myself to not keep that fear for too long.
Well, shout out to your school system.
Yeah, because I was like, it blows my mind how like I didn't personally was like, oh, this is normal, until I realized it wasn't. And I was like, people don't get this. Like people don't get like, I guess I was lucky for people who broke the rules in the South because they was telling us everything we needed to know. And being around strong women who was like, okay, we're gonna have this conversation because I don't want you to end up in situations. Granted, did I listen? But the conversations were there.
Well, I just learned that I probably need to go shopping around for my next bay around your area. So,
Don't do that.
Never mind.
I would not suggest that. You notice most people I date are not from this area, and most of them are not even from this country. Let's be honest.
Oh, you're right. Look, we're not gonna go into that. Because I was about to say I have my out of the states people too, so we're not going into that. So Nick, how do you bring up the conversation of sex? Like, is there a fear that's been there in the past? Is it currently there when it's in terms from our conversations? I feel like the barrier there of having that conversation with your current partner is just like, we trust each other. But like in past sexual experiences, was there a feeling of fear of bringing up, different things that y'all can do together?
Yeah. So I don't. So here's my thing. I don't necessarily have a fear of talking about sex, but definitely initiating the conversation when it comes to sex. When it's like meeting somebody new. I know, like Bria said, you meet somebody and they start talking about sex a little bit too early. Me being a guy, I personally never want to be that person to where I'm talking about it too early. So I generally wait until, whoever I'm communicating with to initiate the conversation about sex. And then it's like, okay, I can open up. I don't have this fear of kind of pushing somebody away too early when it involves a conversation of sex. Because, I do understand that there could be some people that's a little bit too pushy on that. Yeah, so I mean, other than that, no, I'm pretty okay with communicating about sex, talking about sex. I don't know if that's okay. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. What about you, Quitman? How do you typically bring up that conversation about sex?
Okay, that's a tough one for me because I honestly don't really talk about it very often. Mm-hmm. I guess because I'm still dealing with, some past traumas surrounding like just being with someone that perceived themselves to be overly sexual, and that kind of rubbed me in a different way. So for me, I honestly don't talk about it very often. However, the dialogue has been a lot more healthy, especially, now being out of, that situation. I mean, it wasn't a terrible situation. I just had never been presented with, certain conversations in the past.
I get that. I know, like, with me, because I kind of fall on the side of Nick. I don't typically initiate that conversation with people. I usually wait for them to bring it up. I pretty much want to know other people's intentions when it comes to like whenever we're discussing or having conversations with each other. And if your only intention is to have sex, which is perfectly fine, I will then ask, that gives me the opportunity to go into that, to talk about things like sexual interests and whatnot. But if it's somebody that I'm just having great conversations with, I just, have the conversation and let the conversation flow the way that it flows. And if there is some break in the conversation, I might bring it up. Most definitely if it's somebody that I'm really connecting with and I feel as though I can establish some kind of either romantic relationship with them or even a relationship where it's like strictly sexual, or even a friendship, or friends with benefits kind of thing. I might ask them for the permission to go into that conversation. Like, hey, are you comfortable with discussing sex? And then we can have that conversation if they are, and if they're not, we don't talk about it. Nick, what were you about to say?
Oh, I was just gonna say, I guess you know who back in my days. At the old place of work, I had got a comment one time, and it's related to communicating and initiating the conversation about sex. I was talking to this girl, and she, wasn't to me very there yet as far as like what I wanted to talk about. And so after a couple of months of talking, we never had the conversation about sex because I didn't feel that energy was there to where either I needed to bring it up or I even felt that they felt strong enough about me to where they wanted to have sex. And they later told me, they said, why didn't you ever say anything? Why didn't you act on anything? And, based on like the people that I've dealt with in the past, I've just let them know I'm uncomfortable with initiating that conversation because I don't want to come off as a weirdo or, as some of the young people say, I don't want to use the word, but Ari, or sexually aggressive towards somebody, I say, when it comes to initiating the conversation. So I'm more on the chill side, but that does turn some people off.
It does. I've been turned off by it sometimes.
But I'd rather not go to jail or have somebody assume something about me by initiating the conversation at the wrong time.
Just even listen to that side of it. I think about fairness in a way. Like, is it fair to expect the other person to be the individual that initiates that conversation when you want them to initiate that conversation? Like, I kind of wish that, like perfect society kind of thing, that it will be easier to go into that, and because I understand the stigma, but like what you're bringing up, Nick, how it can be a guy can easily be seen as being super aggressive or by bringing that up, or can be categorized as being just like every other dude whose only interest is sex, when it's like, I've been communicating with you and I'm not trying to lead you on or anything like that. It's just that this is a conversation that I want to have just in case if we, get there. Like even the person I had this semi date with yesterday, they had the assumption that just because I'm a sexual person, which they already knew based off our conversation, that I'm not someone who's interested in relationships. And I literally was like, but did you ever ask? And they had to like reflect on that. I was like, yeah, I never asked if you really are into relationships. Or they always thought that, hey, this person always talking about sex on his podcast. So clearly this is a person who only cares about sex. So I like, one of the barriers that kept us from meeting is because he literally thought that my intentions were just to only have sex and not actually have like a true communication. And also there was a fear that once we engaged in sex, that's when the conversation ends, essentially.
Yeah, and even when it comes to what I was mentioning earlier about verbal and nonverbal communication, I've had the experience where, in the same light, we may have this sexual conversation being initiated by whichever party, but then you get into person and, either one person is more shy than the other or whatever. But for me, it's like, the girl may say later, well, why didn't you initiate XYZ? And my rule of thumb is I don't initiate anything because I've had, people in my family go to jail and stuff like that over, somebody saying, initiate with me first. And, it doesn't come off. Well, I don't know how to say it, but just pretty much I wouldn't initiate first in person either. I always wait, because it kind of makes me feel more comfortable that I won't go to jail. Somebody assume something of me, or I don't want to assume, the other person wants it either, even though they may have said it
in a sense, their initiation of those kind of conversations provide a safe space for you.
Yeah.
Makes sense. Bria, were you about to say something?
I was just gonna go off kind of what both of y'all said. It takes nuance to really get that comfortable level of like, okay, who's gonna initiate, who's gonna do this, like, and it gets tricky sometimes, because I can definitely say, and Bernie, you know this, like with my current boyfriend, the first couple days I'm like, dang, I don't know if this man likes me. Like, I don't know what, and, like with our situation and him in the military, it was like, well, he's literally leaving in a couple days. And I'm just like, I could just be, just some entertainment while he's in town. But there was literally no kind of initiation. So I was like, I don't know. So it took me I think I was the one who said something. But then I've also kind of been on the other side where I've had, because like I said, I'm pretty sexual person. I'm pretty open person, unless like, again, in some situations like this most recent one where I'm so shy because I really like the person that I second guess myself and I don't do the initiating. But then I've also had situations where people would try to throw my being open back at me. Like, oh, you do too much. You talk about it too much, even though I don't think I do.
You don't?
I don't. I really don't think. I feel like I find a pretty good common middle ground. But it's like, it makes you second guess all of your next experiences. Because once one person tells you something, even if it's not necessarily true, it could just be them trying to break you down. You really start questioning later experiences, because you're just like, dang, I don't want to be too aggressive, especially when you really like somebody and you just like, I don't want to be that person. And I definitely, it's for me, it's harder. It's harder with women than men, because I feel like most straight men, it's a little bit more obvious. Usually. This past situation had thrown me for a loop, but I don't say past because it's still ongoing, but that one threw me for a loop. He was just a whole different breed. But usually it was the women who it was a little bit harder for me, because I was like, I don't want to be too aggressive. Like, I don't want to come off as like how the men come off. I'm sorry, y'all, but
we understand what you mean.
But yeah, like, I didn't want to be that person. But then at the same time, it's just hard. Okay, it's hard to find that balance. I mean, for me, it's not hard to have the conversation, but like Nick was saying, sometimes in person, that's the part that gets difficult for me, because I also don't necessarily like to initiate, especially if I'm with like a woman. I definitely don't usually initiate unless it's like the end of the night. I might give you a kiss. That's as far as I'm gonna go until you tell me otherwise.
I feel you there. For me, I like if I go somewhere, like let it be a date, and I like to know what everybody's expectations are with that date. And if you have the intentions of, having sex afterwards, just let me know. Let me know beforehand. Because if I'm like, okay, we're going to dinner and the movies, my mind is going to be on dinner, movies only, and let's go. Like, I'm out. I'm going home after this. Probably at the end of that, I might ask, okay, are you comfortable with me, like, giving you a kiss? Or if they motion towards a kiss, I'm more willing to, like, reciprocate. But if sex is on the mind, it wasn't there for me, so I'm not going to be in the mood for sex. So it's like for only, I know this is just me specifically, I need to know if sex is on the menu before we engage in that. Like, even somebody I've been communicating that's like in Atlanta, I let them know, because they like to play video games, and I like video games too, and we both like Smash Brothers. And I'm like, one, I really do want to play Smash Brothers with you. On top of that, I also want to have sex with you. So, like, I don't know which way we're going to do this. Like, are we going to play the games first and then have sex, or have sex first and game? Or are we going to do both of them at the same time? Because I'm all here for that. Or are we going to just like have this in repetition? But if, let's say, if we were having this conversation, I'm already in like Atlanta and we weren't planning that, and it's like, oh, we're meeting up to play Smash Brothers. Smash Brothers would be the only thing on my mind. And if you like move over and like, oh, I want to have sex, motherfucker, we're not having sex. Like, you should have told me that before I came here. But yeah, like, there was a point in time where I was a lot more open to just going with the flow with things, but I also realized that sometimes I just don't want to put in all that work. I just want to just have my mind where we said that things are going to be at before going forward into anything else. A question I have for each of you, this might be the last question for the episode too, but that question is, how do you communicate with your sexual partners about your likes and dislikes, pretty much like your sexual wants and your sexual needs? Whoever wants to start that off.
Okay,
what I've noticed? Oh.
No, go ahead.
Okay, so what I've noticed with myself personally is that the best way to set up your sexual likes and dislikes is for that to be one of the getting to know you questions, like in the very beginning. Because of course your likes and dislikes can change, but if you have a baseline to work with, then you're just like, okay, I know this person isn't hardcore, or I know this person likes to only, I know this person is more oral than penetrative. So, you kind of have that sort of baseline in the beginning, because once you're into something a little bit deeper, I've learned that with myself personally and with other people that I've encountered, that, like you said, if sex isn't part of the initial conversation, then you're not expecting it.
Yeah.
Okay. So I honestly, whenever the conversation has, that first initial conversation about sex is brought up, I'm pretty much an open book. I mean, I tell people what I like and what I don't like. Like recently, I was talking to somebody and I was explaining that I think I like to be watched in a sense, that kind of does something for me, but I don't like, gooch action or whatever. And so, it's kind of one of the things where it's like, yeah, it's not a problem for me once that gate is open. But then I've also found out that, some people also don't know how to communicate with their likes and dislikes. And so you have to kind of go on that nonverbal communication and learn how to communicate with people's body language, because you may get in a stroke or a suck or whatever, and they might not say anything, but you might notice a foot twitch or some kind of pullback from something that you're doing, and that can kind of lead to a conversation after, where it's like, oh, you haven't told me this before, but I see that your body likes this, more than you said that you like this. And I think that's important too.
I agree. And I know, Bria, you already mentioned, like, generally whenever you have the sex talk with anyone that you're going to be intimate with, you ask them about their hard no's, their yeses and whatnot. To extend on that, has those conversations often led to something fruitful, meaning that they were able to articulate that information to you, or was it more so, something bare minimal, or just something like that's very surface level kind of response?
So surprisingly, for the most part, I get people who are pretty open. But I think it's also because usually when I ask this question, I will answer prior to them answering. So, and I'll also kind of lead with something that lets them know that I'm not going to judge you. And I always said, I was like, I'm not going to judge you for your kinks, fetishes, what you like, you know, especially when it comes to dating straight guys. A lot of them don't want to open up about certain things that they like. So that's why I try to lead the conversation so that they feel comfortable opening up to me and know that like I'm a safe space for them, whether we're like in like an actual like romantic relationship or is it just strictly sexual. Apparently I give off dom energy sometimes, so I tend to get a lot of guys. I tend to get a lot of guys who they may not admit it and they may not look like it, but who want to be dominated. So that's kind of how I do the conversations, just because I know, like we've talked about this, we've mentioned it earlier about how difficult it can be for guys, especially heterosexual guys, to really communicate sometimes. So that's why I try to be an example so that I can get those answers that I want and need and that they need to provide me so that we can have a good experience and, you know, maybe try something they've been wanting to try and they just needed to find that person they were comfortable with. I like being that comfortable person for people.
I know, like when I oh, Nick, you were about to say something?
Oh, I was just gonna say that is very true. Like, I'm not a person that is gonna always tell you what I like and don't like. You know, and like I said, the kind of nonverbal communication, I understand the body language. Like Abria says, he's dominant or, you know, can be. You know, that's something I wouldn't tell somebody. I would kind of see if you figure it out. And for, you know, that person that may kind of figure it out based on like my body language, my response to actually putting in the effort to try something, you know, that kind of does a little bit more for me, because like one of my things I never told anybody is like, I like to be choked up a little bit, and I might like a little kind of disrespectful talk, you know, towards me. And
see, I told you.
You know, I'm not gonna say that, but if I find that person that's gonna kind of push that, and they kind of see, okay, you kind of like this, and they kind of build on it, and then they do it, man, I might be hooked to that person for real. You know.
Nick, you sound like someone who likes their partner to push their limits, and part of that is you want them to unravel the puzzle themselves rather than you give them all the answers. And I think some of that stems from a sense of dominance too, which is perfectly fine. I'm here for that. I feel communicate that with your partner. Tell her that, you know, you want her to push your buttons. And I mean, like, not like press you in terms of like, well, I actually pushed because you, like you say, you do kind of like being degraded a little bit. But like when it comes to, you know, engaging in sex, you want her to push on those boundaries before, and see how those things come. And you also sound like a very sensual person too. So yes, Nick, we here for it. What were you about to say, Quitman?
Nick, don't be scared. Tell these women, these beautiful women, like, hey, Miss Lady, you know, I like this. Because I mean, when we talked about you know, what turns people on in terms of like mutual pleasure, like, you never know, like that could be someone's pleasure hearing about what you like. Because I was with someone that needed to hear like if I liked it or not. However, like you were saying, like you prefer to listen to someone's, you know, body, and I prefer to let my body speak for myself. So like, yeah, I definitely see both sides of that.
Oh yeah.
And I was gonna say, oh, go ahead.
I was just gonna simply put it, when you find that one, they do what you like, What you really, really like? Oh yeah, that's it. My ring at. But not good.
I was gonna say I did like what you said before about not only having these conversations before, but also afterwards. Because you might end up doing something in the midst of sex, and to be able to talk about it afterwards with a partner and be like, hey, I really like that. We gotta do that again. We gotta, and I think that also opens up additional conversations. Especially if, like Nick said, he may not say it in that first conversation, but if it happens during, I'm sure a lot of people will want to talk about it after.
Yes. And my main lesson because I've had this conversation with some women before who just, it's like, a man should know kind of thing. And my thing I usually tell to them is that, yeah, a man can know. I wouldn't say should, but when it comes to different partners and people's different sexual histories, that a person can't read a map without a legend. A person cannot necessarily read somebody's body language if they don't know the language that body is speaking in. And given some kind of decoding, like Bree was saying, just saying, hey, I enjoyed that, what you did tonight, does build into that conversation. It builds more of that happening. It helps them understand, like the thing that really stood out throughout this entire episode that you said, Nick, was like just noticing a foot twitch, which is like some people ain't even going to see that kind of shit, like, just to be real. But exactly. like noticing that you are learning the map of your partner's body, and that's a great thing. Which is also why I'm like you, like Nick. I think you're a sensual player. Like for real.
I ain't never got one bad review.
Y'all be like Nick. He said it's Nick the Quick, and the Quick is for a reason. It's not because of him.
That's right.
Oh God. So, does anybody else have anything else that they want to share in regards to, discussing likes and dislikes with their partners before I close out everything?
No, I can't think of anything. The only other thing that I can think of is just the comment is, I find it that some women, because I primarily deal with women, don't understand that men can say no to sex. Because I find it that I say no a lot, which is what I hear from people is very rare. And I think that's kind of weird, because it's like not everybody wants to do that all the time. Or even if you look good, it doesn't mean I want to sexually. So not all men say yes every time. Just a little side comment.
That's a word.
Shoot, the same could be said for women, bisexual women, pansexual. I'm pansexual, but that, just because I like everybody, don't mean I like everybody.
Exactly.
like, listen, some of y'all stay in the friend zone for a reason.
Messing up my report card. I got all A's.
Okay. Whitman, you have something that you wanted to share?
No, I just wanted to laugh with you guys.
I'm so done. I love it. I do have one last question, and it is because I know whenever I have these kind of conversations with people, I ask people, like, what are you sexually into? And some just don't have an answer, which I learn to accept. But I also share with them what I'm into, and hope, and ask them, okay, is there anything else that you're interested in now that I've shared this? Are there any kind of mutual interests and whatnot? And what are some of your personal sexual likes and some of your personal sexual dislikes. And I want to start with you, Quitman. Then we can go to Nick, then we can go to Bria, and then I'll close us out.
So I definitely like to make someone squirm. That's one of my likes. I feel like if I don't make that happen, then I didn't really do it as right as I could have done it. But then also, if I'm in a situation where I kind of didn't initiate it, then one of my likes is for you to take the lead at that point. You know, because I've found that with myself personally, like I can honestly just go without and not ever have to have it again if I didn't need to. So yeah, a like is if you initiate, I prefer you to take the lead. But if I initiate, let me tell you how I want things to go. And I guess a dislike would be one of the main dislikes for me would just be not listening. So if I say no, or, you know, hold on, or if I push you back a little.
Oh, Quitman, I think you went out. Are you still there? Well, we'll end up having to come back to Quitman. Nick, let's go with you.
So, damn, I ain't really got a lot of likes and dislikes. So I do know I like I mentioned earlier, I do like for somebody to take control. I don't always like to be, you know, in full control of, or something that I've been trying to get my point across to my partner recently is that I don't always want to put in the most work. You know, sometimes I want to sit back and let you do what you do. Whether that's be you take control, you know, just let me have my moment of pleasure for today, and you know, we'll swap roles tomorrow. But definitely having somebody else put in the energy and work that isn't reliant upon me, you know, being the sole dominator in the situation. And something that I don't like is I don't like people that don't try. I mean, like, when it comes to sex, I want you to put in some energy or some effort. I want to see you, you know, make faces, or, you know, put your damn body weight down on me or something. Who knows? But if this feel that you're like a stiff board, I'm not gonna want to come back to this, and I don't like that. I want to like you in that way. Very simple, but that's all it takes for me.
To respect that. Nick said, "Put that weight on me." Okay, yes, we support. Quitman, I'll give you the chance to finish up your dislikes.
I don't even know where I left off. I don't know what happened. I was just talking, and I looked down at the screen, and it was like on the lock screen. I don't know.
Oh Lord. So you were talking about when you're pushing, you know, like if you have to like push people off or stuff like that. Like, I guess if like, was it like being too aggressive, or that's what
it was
that's
not
where,
listening.
Yeah, not listening. There we go.
Yeah. I think I got it all out there. Yeah, definitely not listening is like my biggest turnoff. But you definitely do have to listen to my body and what I'm saying to you, because, you know, that's important.
Gotcha. Well, Bria, what about you? Your likes and dislikes?
I guess I'm like Nick in the sense that I am a very heavy switch. So my best experiences have been people who are able to do that seamlessly, like being able to be very dominant, you know, choke me, slap me, whatever you want to do. But then also I can be able to do the same to you is probably like my biggest thing. So yeah, I'm a little bit of a brat too, so I don't be knowing how that works with the whole switch thing, but it works for me. One thing I just can't get into, and it's because my anxiety is so bad, and probably because I have more to lose is exhibitionism. Because you can get put on the sex offender list, and I'm not trying to do that. So I can't get into public sex or things like that. It's just, for me, that's a very hard no. I'm sorry. I know a lot of people are into it, and I'm like, whatever floats your boat. But for me, it's a hard no.
Even in your backyard?
No.
You don't do it in your back? What?
No, I do not.
We'll set up a little tent out there.
No.
Make sure we got a fence.
I don't see. That's another thing. People who be like on the beach and stuff. I'm like, that's sand in my cookout. Like, no.
Sand is glass.
Like, I can't get into the outside in public. It's one thing to be touchy feely a little bit, just to spice it up, but like actual like going all the way there, I can't.
I'm with you there. Like for me, I cannot do public play for those same reasons, because I'm not trying to go to jail. I'm not trying, like, I almost went to jail for public play. So I was like, I'm not playing these games. I'm not playing these games with nobody, because I would rather, be on this side of the prison system. But like, for myself, I have a lot of likes. Like, I prefer like sensual play when it comes to most of my sexual experiences. I like frottage. I like bodies touching each other. I'm open to being choked. I'm also open to choking other people. It's like some real huge switch energy as well over here. But I would say my main like is that sensual nature. Like, nipple play is great. I'm not really a fan of like oral giving or receiving. I would say a major dislike for me is receiving like anything related to water sports, scat play, or fisting. I am willing to do water play.
Yep, that's no.
Same. No.
Whatever floats your boat, but no. Hard no for me too.
Hard no. But like, I'm willing to provide water sports to somebody else. Most definitely, you're willing to pay for it. Like, whatever you try to do. But in terms of receiving it, it makes me uncomfortable. It makes me uncomfortable whenever somebody feminizes my body. So it's like, I'm no longer in the zone for sex, so we can just cut this out. It was nice, it was cute. I guess it was pleasurable for those few minutes, but it's time for me to go ahead and go. Thank you. I appreciate your time. Yeah, so in terms of like kink stuff, yeah, exhibitionism, I just cannot do it. I be looking at people on these on Twitter, and I'm like, why are you out here in a parking lot masturbating? Like, you can really be considered a sex offender. Like, and most definitely, the thing that really bothers me is the people who actually really want to be caught. And I'm like, that's a form of sexual assault now. we can't be doing that. Like, people. Oh, quick, what were you about to say?
I was just about to piggyback off of you, because I don't know what Nick and Bria's Twitter feed looks like, but it's very exhibitory for us. Like, I know I see it all the time where people are just like ordering Uber Eats, and they're just butt ass naked, like accepting a delivery. It's weird.
Yeah, I see that too, and I'm like, it's like that. They don't have consent. Like, these people are not consenting to watching you, seeing you. It gets to be strange, and I feel like it's become, not to say it wasn't popular before, but I feel like it's reached a new level when it comes to social media. And I think honestly, there's a little bit of, what's the word I'm looking for? Hypocrisy, maybe, when it comes to women doing it versus men doing it, because we've established a long time that men in trench coats are creeps. But like, you know what I'm saying? But at the same time, you have people like Miss B Nasty, who's made a career off of like doing this in public places in her car and her Jeep. And it's like, I don't know. Like, I'm very on the fence about all of that.
Ooh, yeah, it makes my skin crawl, because like for me, when it comes to exhibitionism, I think about play parties, and that's everyone's there is either to engage in a sexual encounter with other people, consenting adults who want to have sex, knowing that they're in full view. Well, there's some that have private rooms too, but they're having sex in full view of other people. So it plays on the exhibitionist side as well as the voyeurism side for those people who are into that. But whenever you are out in public, like at a park, at a grocery store, and you're exposing yourself to people who are not in like looking for this, like even those videos of people at the gym who are meeting up with other people at the gym, and I'm like, that's fine for you to do that in terms of public play, but is this gym specializing in adults who are looking for that kind of scene, or is this a place where everyone is going to really work out? Because I'm not trying to go to a gym and I walk into the shower rooms and two motherfuckers are fucking. I will feel like, what the fuck are y'all doing? Like, go get a fucking room.
That playroom stuff seems really interesting. I might need to look some information up on that.
Right. No. So my boyfriend and I went to a playroom or playhouse, and I'm okay with that. Everybody is knowing what's up, but it's the public. It's the, I'm gonna go to this park across from the elementary school. That is just, it disturbs me. But playrooms and playhouses, they exist now. You still won't tell me where that one is in Atlanta, but they did.
I got you.
Look, I need all the details. I just want to go and watch one time, see what's going on. I do like stuff like that.
So I'm going to do a little bit more research so I can like include a lot more playhouses, most definitely ones here in Georgia. I'll probably put something in the show notes. But that would be great to like do a registry of like play spots. But yeah, there's to answer Nick's question about a playhouse, that's essentially like, to find some of them. FetLife is a good resource to find a community of people who are into that, like swingers and whatnot. So definitely look into FetLife. Every now and again, if you like do some deep Google search, you can find some that's in your local area, because not all of them are advertised. And recently I've been thinking about how I want to develop my business, Slaytor's Playhouse. And at first it was just going to be strictly books, but now I'm just like, you know what, let's if y'all catch my drift. But anybody else has anything else in relation to playhouses before I close things out?
I'm kind of like intrigued too, you guys. Intriguing.
Well, I'll get a little roster up. Just send me a state, and I'll do some research for y'all. And Bria, I'll see if I can find some local places for you. Nick, I forgot exactly which state you're in, so let me know, and I'll see if I can find anything near you. And equipment. Actually, there's some. I think there's one not too far, like in your area, too. Equipment, by the way.
Oh God.
So, the search term to look into is dungeons. Not all dungeons are safe. I will put that out there. If it's a dungeon that has dungeon rules, you're better off on that. A lot of them run off the color scheme, so like red, green, yellow. If you see something like that, it's a little bit more trustworthy. So let's put that out there. Yeah. on that note, well, last tip for everybody. If when it comes to like exploring yourself, your sexuality and whatnot, I will always recommend the BDSM test. It is phenomenal. It gives you a general idea of where you can start in terms of exploring your sexuality and your likes and dislikes. I use that with people I'm interested in having like ongoing sexual encounters with, just so that we can see how far we can explore with each other. So definitely look into that. But thank y'all so much for coming on to this podcast to record this episode with me. I appreciate each and every one of you. Y'all are phenomenal people. Love y'all so fucking much. To the audience, thank y'all so much for listening to the Ho'Liloquy podcast, where we step out and speak on sexuality. And just in case no one else told you this today, you are beautiful, you are worthy of happiness and joy, you are enough and then some. You may not live up to the expectations of others, but that is okay. You are only required to walk in your own shoes. May each day you live lead you towards abundance. With that said, love you all and see you next episode. Bye. Thank you for listening to the Ho'Liloquy podcast, where we step out and speak on sexuality. You can subscribe to the podcast through your favorite podcasting app and find us on the web at www.ho'liloquy.com. That's www.heauxliloquy.com. Share the podcast with your friends and join the conversation.